So I guess we're not boring.
No way we were boring here. This primetime TV right here. I am many things. I am not boring.
I'm not boring. Oh my gosh. My name is Drishti and Eileen. I am the founder and CEO of Closr, a platform that supports emerging designers from different parts of the world. And this is the first episode of A Closr Look, a podcast where we interview emerging designers that we represent. So our first guest on this episode is Eileen Pappas, an incredible jewelry designer from Greece who focuses on circularity and craftsmanship. And I'm excited for you guys to meet her.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
How am I doing today? Well, it's a very cold and snowy day in New York. I've had better days in New York, but I'm happy to be here with you and to have this chat.
How are your hands doing today?
My hands have also seen better days. So I came to New York on this trip to participate in a showroom for New York Fashion Week. For the first time doing something under my own name during Fashion Week. I prepared a lot of samples before coming here, so I was working a lot with hammers and drills and files, which takes a toll. So I call this the craftsman manicure.
I love that. That's
the
so
craftsman
good.
manicure. You can't ask for it at a nail salon. It's just, it's just for jewelry makers.
So before we get into our deep dive of how you got here and how everything is going, talk me through your look.
Oh, my look. Yes, my look. Gosh, there's a question I don't get asked very often. Okay, my look. So today I'm wearing several of my pieces. I don't know, maybe it's too much. I am also wearing my Serpa earrings on my lapels here. My Serpa studs, also part of Phenomena. And then on my hands, I actually have, I have Spiral 1, which I made a part of Phenomena, but it's actually like one of the first pieces that came before Phenomena. I'm obsessed with spirals, all natural. And then the first ring that I ever made, which is called Unmei, inspired by the sculptures of Isamu Noguchi. So yeah, that was the piece that started it all.
Oh my gosh. That's absolutely beautiful. I'm obsessed with how you did this on the lapels. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
I think more people need to do that. It's incredible.
So I did not invent this. I will just put that out there. I just saw it on someone and loved it, and I said, this will work for me. And it does. And I think, although I do think that my earrings do it better than what I originally saw it on. So there you go. Another reason that you can buy these. And I would love to see a man actually wear it like this.
I was just going to say, I love menswear, and they always get cufflinks, and we don't really have anything in response to that, which is why I love those so much.
Yeah, I would love to see this on a men's look. Just touch the mic. Yes.
We're going to make it happen. Now that you put it in my head, I'm going to make it happen.
Okay.
And figure this out. Okay. So tell us a little bit about how you got here.
How I got here. I took the 6 train. No, how I got here. I was originally in med school. The plan was to be a doctor. I highly recommend going to medical school to discover that you don't want to be a doctor. That's what happened with me. And then I left medical school after my second year, moved to New York, did a summer course at Parsons, ended up working as a fashion designer, doing sweaters for different companies for many years, and then ended up teaching at Parsons in 2019. While I was teaching, I suddenly had free time to explore something that I wanted to do for myself, which was not something that happened when I was working full-time as a designer, ironically. I ended up in a jewelry workshop in Brooklyn called NYC Jewelry Lab. That's where I took my very first metalsmithing classes. Once again, fell in love, completely different medium. I was able to do things that I had not even imagined. So that was, and I started my own brand in the process, and here we are.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. So what was that move like between, I guess, like New York and of course you're still teaching and everything, and I know like we've actually like worked with so many of your other students in the past as well, which are all incredible, and you can see like little glimmers of you in them.
That's very sweet.
Amazing.
I just it's all there. I just help move the debris aside and the curtains aside and let them shine. Yeah, the move back to Greece. So I had been living abroad for a good 20 years. I left Greece in 2001 and then lived in several different places around the world between then and the time that I moved back. So repatriating was definitely a process. It took, I would say, a good 2 years. Like the first 2 years back, I was still feeling like I was adjusting and getting to know my country again, because obviously many things had changed. So it's been an interesting journey, and which is why I also had to think a bit about where is my customer? Where do I want to put my focus? And that's why I keep coming back to New York, because truth be told, most of my customers are here.
That's what I was just going to ask you. I feel like every time you come here, your schedule, one, is extremely, extremely packed. And two, like, you have such a strong, not only support system out here, but strong consumer base that is exceptionally loyal. It's like literally wherever you're showing, no matter what sort of exhibition you're a part of, they're always there, which is really amazing. And I think it's something that a lot of designers strive to create and have. So it's so wonderful that you've got that in the beginning. So I was going to ask, I feel like Greece almost seems like your creative or artistic sort of bubble of solitude, where you're doing all your creative.
I can go into my cocoon and make, turn into a mush and then emerge a butterfly. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
I feel like it's like that for a lot of different artists, though.
Yeah. The way that I described it to people, I felt, because obviously a lot of my inspiration came from my culture and growing up in Greece and, the nature there. Doing that kind of work and being here almost felt like I was being a little bit of a fraud. I felt like I was kind of appropriating my own culture, and it's like, well, if you love Greece so much, like, why are you not there? Right. So that was another reason to move back that I felt very strongly about, and but you're right, I do have a very supportive base here, and people show up, and I mean, again, this is very ironic, but I feel like I've spent more meaningful time and had more meaningful experiences with my friends and, loved ones here in New York since I moved out than when I was actually here. I end up seeing people more because it's like, oh, you're here. Let's hang out. So, yeah.
People definitely make a lot more of an effort when you're visiting. Yes. And I feel like even with like shooting this podcast, I was like, oh, crap. She's like leaving in 3 days. We have to make this happen. Getting married tomorrow, but it's fine. I need to film this.
I know. I was like, should we mention this? Here she is getting married tomorrow, and she's here filming this podcast with me today. So that right there should show the amount of like loyalty and dedication, and exactly what we were talking about people showing up. Yes, I think you are the perfect example.
I think it's like a workaholic syndrome, but it's also the fact that like there's like a lot of like unpacking, probably therapy-wise, I need to do with regards to this, but there's like no bigger like confidence boost in my head than like doing your job and doing it well, especially if you're in a job that you love so much.
Yeah, a job that means something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's obviously a lot of sacrifice in what we do.
Yeah.
That's involved, and yes, must tend to mental health. That's an absolute must.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you give me like two of your most like wildest fashion industry experiences where you were like, oh my God, this is an insane industry that we're a part of. We're trying to get you to spill tea.
Spill tea, okay. Oh, oof, oof. I don't actually know. I mean, in some ways I've kind of been blessed, I guess, to have worked for the greater part of my career in fashion, worked more corporate. Never like in an atelier with a crazy designer who, made me cry every day. And I've had friends who were in that position. Yeah, every day it was like they needed therapy because they were having mental breakdowns.
Are you kidding? The industry doesn't pay us that much.
No, and I don't think they were even getting paid. I think it was like an internship. I did get into a screaming match with one of my head designers one time, and to this day I don't really quite understand why. That was a job that I wanted to leave. I was actually interviewing to leave at other places, and then miraculously she ended up leaving the company. And my new boss was wonderful. So I was like, okay, so it wasn't me. It wasn't my work.
That's like a positive spill the tea story, though.
Yeah, I think it ended up well for everyone. Like, she did well, too, which is like, obviously I don't wish ill on anyone.
Absolutely. I think this is also something really to note about our industry, which is quite surprising, is that, in a regular corporate job, right? Like, if you've got like a bad manager, that can completely shift the entire trajectory of your role, your career, your progression. It makes
your life a living hell.
Absolutely. Yes. Been there, done that, quit. It was terrible. Yeah. But I think with the creative industry, or if you're in fashion, that is 10x. Because having creative differences with somebody are not necessarily policy changes or logistical things or compliance things that you can shift and change and process around. It's not, something that you can rope other people in and say, hey, what do you think? A creative choice is you have to go per whoever you're reporting to, which I think can be detrimental or mind-blowing for your career.
Yeah. I do think that your manager / head designer, when you're just starting off, is really a formative figure in how your career is going to turn out, what you're going to end up doing.
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, this goes back to like trauma theory, but it's like hurt people. Like if you've been in that environment, like you have to really be observant and aware and saying, I'm not going to do that to somebody else just because it was done to me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
And I think that takes a lot because our industry is the most circular when it comes to that. Interns get treated terribly in this, industry, and it just keeps, it doesn't get any better. It just keeps happening over and over again because your bosses were treated terribly. Right. So they think it's a rite of passage to treat, new interns and employees a certain way, to have some sort of test and see if they're, willing to have the grit to stick with it and for what reason. Yeah. Ask them to improve your policy in some way. Give them a task that's really tough and really, not carry like 5 rolls of freaking fabric across the garment district in stilettos. Like, what good is that doing anybody?
Yeah, I mean that definitely still happens. I will say, at least from conversations that I've had with students in recent years, there has been some improvement in that regard in terms of policy, in terms of students getting paid for internships. So I think there is some desire. I don't know how much of this is like on the part of the actual companies and designers, but certainly from institutions that are academic institutions, right? To make things better and care for the students. Yeah, because it's a lot. But to that end, I do think it's important to note, like, the fashion industry is not easy. Mm-hmm. It is one of the most brutal industries I think that there is. Yep. So there is a little bit of that, like, the paying your dues does kind of harden you because what you're going to end up dealing with is it's going to continue being hard.
Absolutely. Okay, I think this is a good place to segue into how do you feel about ageism in the industry? Ooh, okay. People think that it exists for models, but after working together and all the stories you've told me especially, I am now realizing, of course, this exists for everyone. So tell me your take.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing that I have had to deal with. Even, it starts at 35 really, because that's when the opportunities kind of end, I feel.
35?
35. What? So, and this goes for not just like fashion, but I would say the greater art world in general. When you're talking about scholarships or grants or things like that, like the vast majority of all of, the funding opportunities, applications for these things, the cap is 35. By that point, you're supposed to be like a mid-career artist, or, you're already established. You don't, they don't care about you, basically. It's very, very easy to feel like, oh, if I haven't made it by age 30, I'm a failure. Even though I do think that obviously there is a lot of wisdom, and frankly, there are just some people, I'm one of them, who are kind of late bloomers in life, and it takes us a while because, for many different reasons. For me, I think it was just, I'm interested in many things. So, I didn't know that I wanted to be a jewelry designer when I was 15 or 20. Right. I discovered that later in life. And so now I'm starting on this path. But I do feel invisible, I think, a lot of the time. And some of that, I will freely admit, some of that might be like self-inflicted, self-created in a way. Like I'm not the most comfortable doing the dog and pony show. I've never have been when it comes to fashion, which again makes me kind of like an unconventional choice to be in this industry, because like that's what it's all about.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's literally age and things that have nothing to do with your creative output suddenly are barometers for, your success or failure. I think now, sure, your Instagram following, your social media following, yes, does contribute from a marketing standpoint, to sales and all of that. But I know so many emerging designers that have hundreds of thousands of followers, but no sales.
No sales.
And then I know designers that have 1,000 followers that are doing phenomenally well, but that just don't care enough for social media.
Again, speaking of age, I mean, this kind of connects to another reason why it's so difficult to do what I'm doing right now. I feel like when I was in school, we were being prepared for an industry of a certain kind, right. Which by the time we were graduating, I graduated from Parsons in 2013, which was right on the cusp
That's
of
when
the social media boom.
Started.
That's when
That was
you
my
started.
first year at Parsons.
So I was already older when I got started, and as we were graduating, like that was right on the cusp of like the bloggers, influencers, social media boom. So when the industry changed drastically, up until that point, it had been like editors. Runway shows were very much like an exclusive event. You didn't have images like right on the spot, online available to everyone. It was like a whole new world. I think, and I'm not just speaking for myself now, I think a lot of my peers felt the same way. It's like we were constantly trying to catch up with the industry and what was happening and how to actually make a mark.
It was really funny. I read an interview by Brian Boyer. He was being interviewed for a magazine or something.
Brian Boy. It was the age of like when Brian Boy was just starting out. Yeah.
And he was talking about how one of the first shows that he got invited to and was sitting in the front row, there were other bloggers there, and what they had done during the show is they actually had laptops in front of their seats to differentiate between actual guests, editors, and bloggers. So bloggers were literally typing through the show, and I think he was like sitting like a couple of seats away from Anna Wintour and like this whole thing, but that front row, but like that distinction. Also, like on a side note, when you're actually watching a show, when you watch it through a screen, you're focused on like tapping and making sure it's like all clear, not hazy, whatever. Yeah. When you're actually physically looking at fabric on the runway, that's what you need to focus on. Yeah. And I think like, I'm a little more old school in that sense. Like I'll have a notebook and everything. Yeah. And then my like marketing and PR people will come back and say, did you video anything? Do we have anything to post on social? And I'm like, which side am I on right now?
Again, coming back to, the jewelry and finding success online versus in person, I have no trouble selling any of my pieces when they're in front of actual people. Online, different story. Which is, again, another reason when people are like brick and mortar is dead. I'm like, no, it's not dead, because when you have a store that is actually well curated, where you have items that are meaningfully made, customers are not stupid.
So our new marketing manager, Bear, is actually a PR expert, funnily enough. So we invited him, as you know, to our pop-up that you were a part of, which was at Soho House, and we had our holiday market there and everything. Yeah. So he came on board and everything, and literally the first thing he said, didn't even hesitate. First thing he said to me after this was done was, so we really need to figure out how to make online as great as pop-ups. Like, didn't even mince his words. And I realized like what a huge disconnect there is, between physical experiences, like even for me, like running an e-commerce business where we can take emerging designers and have that cross-pollination of global fashion is the absolute dream. Yeah. But pop-up events and experiences and all of that comes so much easier to me because I'm able to understand, okay, this is what the setup is going to look like with Eileen. This is what I want people to feel emotionally when they walk past her station. Yeah. I want that differentiation to be there between her and a different designer. Right. That literally I can do with my eyes shut. But when it comes to digital, like
websites
and social media for that matter, right? Yeah. It's like, why do I need to consistently talk about what I'm doing? I'm not posting because I'm working. Yeah. Like that is, I think.
Yes, I'm not posting because I'm working. I think that's the best way to sum it up.
Yeah. So Bear's about to throw his camera at us as we're in the middle of talking about how we're in the Stone Age and hate everything digital. He's behind the camera right
Shooting
now, by the way.
ourselves in the feet as we're trying to build an online platform to sell the work of emerging designers. Please buy our stuff. No. I'm not posting because I'm working. I think, so I've hired, actually, she was one of our interns at the Soho House event, and I took her on, lovely Carrington. So I took Carrington on to help me with social media because it is something I don't have the energy to deal with, frankly. if I'm doing all of these other things, I'm not making this.
Yeah.
You can't have any of this if I don't make it. So there needs to be some kind of a way to deal with all of this. And so she was asking me, she's like, I need more footage of you like making things. And I'm like, well, if I'm making things, I'm not going to be thinking about I'm like going in like this on some ring, trying to get out, a file mark. And, the camera's probably going to get like the top of my head. Like, so I'm not posting because I'm working is kind of what it comes down to.
So for context, Carrington is our marketing associate and social expert. And she also works with Eileen to manage her social media. I think we're both kind of having those same conversations with her where she's constantly either frustrated with us, where she's like, oh, put a camera up, during your meeting. Yeah. And like, excuse me? During a what? When you're onboarding a designer, what? She's like, just prop your camera up where your monitor's there and your laptop and you're talking to the screen. And she's like, pretend like it's not there. What do you mean? There's a ring light in my face. Like, it's right there.
No, she asked me for ASMR videos of like me making jewelry. And I'm like, you want to hear like the files like grinding metal? Or hammering, or like drilling stuff. Like, who wants? I don't even want to hear that. I don't even want to hear that. Like, yeah. So, but anyway, so I'm gonna do some wax carving ASMR, which is a lot quieter. But I was like, what? But I guess people want to see this.
I'm hoping. I literally talk to my team about this all the time, and it's like, okay, now we've done these, great pop-ups with cocktails and everything, and I think about this so much where I said, okay, if instead of having a group of designers, if we, partnered with a chef, where it's a Greek chef, and you have food and fashion and culture and everything in the same room, what would that look like?
Right.
And what would that experience be? I think that is like the cultural aspect of a community where it's bringing it to life, whether it's clothes, whether it's jewelry and food and all of these incredible things that I feel like are so lost in these sort of Instagrammable moments. Whether it's hall culture and, running around sort of the city and going to these Grammable restaurants without really,
And everybody's doing the same things and going to the same places and you're seeing the same photos. In Greece, it's like Mykonos, Santorini. Like everybody's going to like the same spots, and it's just this endless stream. And there's there's so much more. There's so much more.
I hope that we can work enough and work with enough designers where there's some, like you said, something for everyone. Yeah. And people are encouraged and have the confidence to purchase things that speak to their personality, that they're emotionally connected to.
Yes.
And that actually makes sense for them. So my last question for you is, which I feel like our audience is really going to love. Favorite Greek island? Non-basic, obviously.
Okay, non-basic. I'm going to go with Patmos. So it's a tiny island in the Dodecanese. Tiny island, you can basically, if you're a hiker like me, you could probably walk from one end to the other in a day. The island itself, even though it's tiny, it's so different. Like the differences between the different kinds of beaches, like you have your typical like sandy Bahama type beach, and then you have one with like all these colorful stones, and then you have every beach is different. Great food, great people. That would probably be my favorite island. But it's a tough call. I have a few.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm adding that to my honeymoon list now.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
That would be beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that was the supremely talented Eileen Pappas. Check her out on shopclosr.com/Eileen Pappas or on our designer page. She is literally one of the most talented jewelry designers I've absolutely ever met. Should we have her on for part 2? I think we definitely didn't do enough here. There's how about if we don't get canceled, there'll be a part 2. And that's a good deal. Okay. If you're an emerging designer looking for representation or just trying to make your way in the world with a story to tell, reach out to us at shopclosr@gmail.com and we'd be happy to help you. And that was it. Episode 1 of A Closr Look.
High five.
Yeah. Okay.
We were born for this.
We were like, yeah.